There's this old saying, the law is a jealous mistress. I never really understood that until I got into law school. Law school can be absolutely time consuming.
We are starting to shift our focus on stress busters, which we do every year.
Come prepared to sort of relax your body and refocus some of that energy that you may feel like you're running low on this time of year.
Welcome to On Reserve, the official podcast for the UGA Law Library. We're your hosts, Nina
and Rachel. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about mindfulness and de-stressing and just some of the things that the library has to offer as far as approaching exam times and reading days and just, how students, faculty, and staff, can all benefit not just from the library's resources, but some of the other things that UGA has to offer, and get some good advice from some people who do this every day for a living. We're going to have guest Guzman, who is the work-life balance coordinator for UGA. She also happens to be an alum and a former faculty member of the School of Law. And so we're going to have her speak to us. But before we get into that, I wanted to introduce Nina more properly. The past couple of episodes, we have had co-host Leslie Grove and myself going back and forth, and now we're bringing Nina into the mix. So I wanted to welcome Nina and let her kind of say, what she does at the law library, and this will go great into our segment about what the library has to offer for stress busters, since you're so involved with that. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the intro. So I'm a circulation assistant. I pretty much help out with all the front desk duties, helping faculty and students check books in and out. We help out with iPhone chargers, laptop chargers, to even like book stands, umbrellas, all those fun, interesting things that everyone's available to at circulation desk. The way I kind of pitch my job is that I know where all the books are, but I don't know what's in the books. So if you need help searching for anything, I'm your person. I also help out with ILL. So any other universities in the US that want to borrow any of our books, I'm the one who sees if they're available and sends it out to them.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so, now that exams are going to be starting up soon, we are starting to shift our focus on stress busters, which we do every year. We're doing everything from the usual puzzles. We're having coloring books. We're also bringing back the large TV word search that people will get really into. We're even thinking about bringing a whiteboard so people can start their own personal competitions to see who can find the most words the fastest. If there's anything.
I know that we just sent out the sign up just yesterday for the massages, the seated massages. Mm-hmm. That seems to be popular among the students.
Oh, definitely.
And the other big event that we have going on right now is the book repair clinic. And I know you're involved with that, and especially overseeing some of the student workers at the desk that are repairing those books. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of repairing and what's going on with the book repair clinic right now?
Yeah, sure. So, every semester, at the end of the semester, students and faculty and even some staff are more than welcome to bring in their road-worn textbooks or books that are maybe kind of falling apart or maybe need a little bit of love. And what we do is that you can bring them in. It's completely free. And we have our wonderful book repair wizards, which is really just one person at the moment, wonderful Caroline, repairing them. And most of the time they do it in 24 hours, which is pretty amazing. But she not only just does the book repair clinic, but she's here all year round helping us preserve a lot of our antique and archival items. So it's always fun to see that process. So starting off with a book that's maybe from like the 1800s and seeing her get some Hozo paper, binding, making sure the binding is secure, then figuring out paints that match the color of the books almost identically. It's amazing how she does that. And even using a gold pen to go over any like little details in the book spine. that she can help fix. It's really fun to watch. And actually, if you're interested, we have the whole process, not just in our Amicus Briefs newsletter and online, but also on the blog if you want to check out the full sped up video of her working on a couple of those.
That's great. The other thing that I wanted to mention with Nina was she's been creating a lot of our displays in the library. So the next display you can look forward to will be one related to mindfulness, some books that we have about work-life balance. Most of these resources come from our career and professional resources collection. And just wanted to mention a couple of these that kind of stood out to us that you'll be using in the display. So I know there's one that has a beautiful cover called
Yeah.
Yoga for Lawyers. Will that one be included in the
Oh,
display?
definitely. Yeah.
It includes mind-body techniques to feel better all the time. And that goes right along with some of these yoga de-stress sessions that we'll be offering over the course of these reading days, which will be April 25th, April 26th, and April 27th. They're each going to be at noon for 20 minutes. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. We've got information about the exact locations of each session for each day. And these are open to not just law students, but faculty and staff members. So we encourage everybody to go. Really short session. You don't need any special clothes or to bring a mat or anything. Just come prepared to sort of relax your body and refocus some of that energy that you may feel like you're running low on this time of year. There's a couple of other books that are really good ones. And we'll again, these will be a part of our display at the front of the library. The Lawyer's Guide to the Alexander Technique, using your mind-body connection to handle stress, alleviate pain, and improve performance. There's also Jiu-Jitsu Jurisprudence, a guide to balancing your life practice and law practice with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's a couple others that aren't quite just for managing stress, but maybe we can include these as well. Beyond Smart, Lawyering with Emotional Intelligence, and the Effective Assistance of Counsel, Practicing Law as a Healing Profession. At the end of this episode, we're also going to include some music, some meditative music that was composed specifically for relaxing and de-stressing, just like we've been talking about. So hopefully, if you can get through our rambling in this episode, you can come back again and again and actually listen to the episode and use it itself as a stress relieving tool while you're sitting at the library or at home or wherever it is that you will be studying for your exams and preparing for the end of the semester. It will help you just to relax and get into whatever mood you need to get into. We welcome into the studio with us today UGA's Work-Life Balance Coordinator, Kismet Adams. Kiz is also a former School of Law faculty member and graduate of the class of 1989. Welcome, Kiz.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I can't think of a more fitting time to chat with you about managing stress than today, since just yesterday was Mental Health Awareness Day, March 28th. So I think this is a really timely subject, and so many law students can relate to this, especially as we approach exams, which is one reason why we wanted to do this particular episode right now. Thinking back to your own days as a law student, can you relate to this and as the work-life balance coordinator give some tips or some things that you learned in your own life that made it a little easier to deal with?
Yes, I can. So I've told many people I don't necessarily have an educational background in work-life balance, but what I missed in any type of formal education in this area, life taught me. So I have 4 children and a family and a dog and 2 cats and a goldfish, and 2 of those children were born while I was in law school. So the first one my first year, and the second one my second year, and we were really worried about this trend because law school's a 3-year program. But the third and fourth came a little bit later. And people often ask me, how did you do that? How did you do law school and have 2 children, 2 babies at the same time? And though it wasn't the best of timing, when I look back on it, It actually probably is what saved me. There's this old saying, the law is a jealous mistress. I never really understood that until I got into law school.
Mm-hmm.
But law school can be absolutely time consuming. You can, read a case, it'll cite another case, you go read that case, and then it cites more cases, and then they cite law review articles and this. And I mean, you could literally take all of your time. And I think because I had a family, I had to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
I could not study all the time. I could not be at the law school all the time. So um, it made me prioritize. It made me be very aware of time management. And it also helped me keep things in perspective. I think sometimes law students, they forget that, yes, law school is important. They want to do well. Lawyers have a great responsibility. That's one reason why it is so stressful and
Mm-hmm.
so anxiety producing, because it's a big responsibility. But it is not all of life. It is not the whole world. You want to do your best in whatever you do, but there are other things that um, you need and should have in your life. And I think that's what having two children gave me. I was able to kind of step back and go, okay, yeah, I didn't do real well on that test or, that paper. And then I go back home and go, but life is not all about getting an A on the test or writing the paper. There's just much more to that. And that's a great deal of what work-life balance is about, is seeing that
Mm-hmm.
there are other things in life.
I know pretty recently after you were hired into this position and you left the law school for the work-life balance position, you had an interview with UGA Today, and you said a quote that really, really struck with me. That work-life balance is like a symphony where all the notes work together to make this beautiful melody, and that really, really resonates with me. Uh, what would you recommend to our listeners, especially the students who, they're just now learning, many of them, to balance the professional and personal lives on a totally different level than they did prior to law school? And many of them are also just now entering not just exams, but the interview process, and
Yeah.
just, maybe some tips for them as they're approaching getting their first legal jobs and how to manage, these sort of new stresses that are about to be a part of their lives.
Yes. Well, when I first got into this position, I was thinking, like most people do, that this is a balancing act. And when I was I was actually looking for a logo. And this was before I realized that you can't have your own logo at UGA. But I was looking for a logo that would sort of capitalize work-life balance. And I kept going back to the scale, like the scales of justice, and
Mhm.
balancing. But the more I thought about that, the more I thought, this is the exact opposite of what it is that you're trying to achieve with a healthy work-life balance. It shouldn't be a trade-off. It
Mhm.
shouldn't be, if I give more to work, I'm going to have less of life. That's why the picture of a symphony is really what I eventually came up with. It's You have a mix of notes in a symphony, and it's having a life where one thing doesn't stand out over the others. The horns don't overpower the wings, or you don't just have one beat
Mhm.
and it's a drum beat, and it's work, and it's work and work and work and work, and just whatever you can maybe fit in into little areas, you fit in.
Mhm.
And the difficulty, I think, when you're in law school is, like I said, law school is all consuming. And I realize it's a 3-year part of your time. You're trying to prepare yourself for a profession that carries with it a lot of weight and responsibilities. But the problem is, you get into a habit of that being the only thing that's in your life.
Mhm.
And there's always going to be something. When you get out of law school, guess what you get into? You get into work.
Mm-hmm.
And then work becomes all consuming. I love this quote by William James, and he's kind of known as the father of modern psychology. And he's talking about habits. And that's the problem is you get into behavioral habits where you become all consumed with one thing, whatever that is. And it could be family, it could be children, to the exclusion of everything else. And he says, this is from his Principles of Psychology. Water hollows out for itself a channel which grows broader and deeper. And after having ceased to flow, it resumes, when it flows again, the path traced by itself before. So I think law school is a perfect time to have a more well-balanced life and have other interest, to make other friends, to always have friends in your life. I'm also a firm believer in bringing those things to work with you. Um, since I've been working in human resources, didn't have any background in HR, but I've been learning a lot of HR terms,
Mm-hmm.
one of which is employee engagement. All companies want employees that are engaged with their job, meaning they're enthusiastic, they're energetic, they are bringing their whole self to work every day. And guess what? Those employees are happier, they are more productive, they are more satisfied in their careers. And what I mean by whole self is if you're passionate about something, bring that to work with you. As we'll talk about in just a minute. I have a
Mm-hmm.
passion for health and wellness and physical. That I have brought that to work with me and to law school with me. Everywhere I've gone, I've brought that with me. Okay, and it's something that's just intermingled with what you do. If you love books, okay, start a book club at your work. And once every 6 weeks over lunch, everybody comes and you discuss the book. That's bringing that energizes your work. It makes your work have more meaning. So my advice would be find those things that are of value to you. If it's helping the underprivileged, then always have that in your life. If you do volunteer activities, have them geared around helping the underprivileged. You can help the underprivileged in your law practice. It's when you have this disconnect with, like you go to work and you put on your work hat and you're somebody totally different at work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you leave work and then you put on your home hat and you're somebody different over there. It has to be all interconnected. And so you have to really decide for yourself, what is it that I value? What gives my life meaning? Why was I born? And then interweave that in everything you do, every aspect of your life, whether it's giving back to the community, whether it's for you personally, something that feeds you or satisfies you, whether that's your career, whether that's your family or your friends or your intimate connections, that thing that or things that are of value to you, you need to keep them through everything that you're doing.
That's so inspiring and refreshing to hear somebody like you talk so passionately about, you
Yeah.
know, not keeping them totally separate, because I
Yeah.
feel like that's so often what we feel like, and what a lot of students probably feel like too, that they've made this big investment in law school and it's such a big responsibility, and that they're going to, not just let other people down, but let themselves down and not get the most out of it if they don't, fully invest and let it consume their lives. They don't, I feel like there's sort of this misconception that it has to be that way or you're not a good student.
That's right. And actually, what the research is showing is that, you would think that companies would want workaholics,
Right.
right? Somebody who's going to come in, spend live, eat, breathe the company. Well, what the research is showing in the Harvard Medical School just did a big research on this term burnout. And is it a real thing? Is it a real disease? And they found, yes, it is. And those employees that are all consumed with the job, they are not the best employees, because what happens is they become disengaged, they become less creative, they lose focus, they have more absenteeism because this leads to health consequences: hypertension, prediabetes, cardiovascular disease, stress, substance abuse. Which is very, I mean, did I not just describe a lot of the
Yeah.
lawyers that we know?
Yes.
So they need to realize that, no, they have to, that's what I'm saying, being a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
You are better at your job by bringing your whole self to work. And that means having other things outside your work that are in you that you bring to your job.
So again, in talking just as you were about bringing those things that you're passionate about to work with you and sort of carrying it around with you everywhere you go, so that you have more of that that sort of symphony going on,
Yes.
instead of that, you know, opposite scales sort of
Mm-hmm.
trade-off. I know I've been to many of your sessions for the Pilates and also the yoga that you've organized for staff members. Can you tell me just a little bit about, you know, how you became an instructor and what enabled you to be able to offer these programs for people, and what programs are available?
Yes. So this is what I mean by finding the things that you value that give your life meaning. I've been a lifelong runner. I've always been into sort of health and wellness and fitness. And the first time that I actually taught a class, it's when I was living in D.C. and I was working on Capitol Hill. And this was right before I entered law school. I was there for about 2 years. And, Capitol Hill is just like, that was like going from the, frying pan to the fire. Capitol Hill, working on Capitol Hill, it is all consuming. It becomes those people's lives. We were all working long, long days, and this was in the Reagan administration. It's still that way, of course, but we had no time to exercise. So I asked the congressman that I work for. He was head of one of the committees, and they have a committee room. And I asked him, I said, you know what, if you aren't having a committee meeting in there that goes on into the evening, can I use that room to lead an exercise class after work for people that work on Capitol Hill? It's an extremely stressful environment,
Can
as
imagine.
you know. And he was very open to that and loved the idea. And so that's how it started. And it started, with a couple of people, some sort of my coworkers in my office. But just like here, the word kind of got around, and in the end, we probably had 50 people in this room, and we would put the music on, and then it was aerobics was big in that era. And we would be doing aerobics, and it was great. That was not a part of my job. I did not get paid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But some days, the best part of my job was leading that class in the evenings, because I saw how it made other people feel so good and was stress relieving. And it was a bonding thing. And you met other people on the Hill that maybe you might not run into. And so I kept that. So then I got into law school. I moved down here and started law school. Well, once again, very stressful. We had no time. And in the basement, which is now where some of the offices, like the student organizations offices, is down there in the basements across from the
Lower floor of Hirsch
yes, the
Hall.
lower floor. There was a big empty room that just had boxes of files, and Ronald Ellington was the dean at that time. And so I asked him. I said, "Can I use that room to teach an exercise class around lunchtime for law students and staff, because we're all extremely stressed and we don't have time to do this?" And so I started that there. And then we went at it again, aerobics classes and teaching. And we had the music going. And again, it brought a lot of meaning to my law school experience. So when I came back to the law school, so after the fourth child was born, after a few years, I left the law school to try to finish raising my family.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, when I was away, I got certified to be a personal trainer. I started a Pilates studio. Um, I just sort of did that. I let that passion run free,
Mm-hmm.
and that became my job. And then when I came back to the law school, when they needed someone to do the graduate programs, um, once again, I saw a lot of stress, people sitting at their desks behind their computers all day long, not even getting up to eat lunch. They were eating lunch at their desk.
I know the feeling.
Yes, yes. And indeed, I was doing that also. I just
Mm-hmm.
got sucked into that routine like everyone else did. Um, so I once again said, you know, I'm going to teach a lunchtime Pilates class, and I picked Pilates and yoga, not aerobics, because you could literally do it in the clothes you wore to work. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something you're going to get sweaty at, that you have to take a shower, and all that. It's also very good for your posture, resetting your spine, all that were the tight hamstrings that come from just sitting all day. And again, it wasn't part of my job. I wasn't paid for it, but um, it makes my job have more meaning.
Mm-hmm. I want to take this moment to say that we are very excited in the library that we've been able to partner with you for this coming exam period. For the first time, the library and the law school student affairs are going to sponsor a yoga de-stress session, a couple of sessions for law students here in the library. And this will be offered during reading days, and there will be more information about that soon. But just as a last bit to ask
Yeah.
you, could you let our listeners, law students, we're also going to open this up to faculty and staff who want to come, but primarily to law students, what they can expect from this short session with you, how it could benefit them as they approach exams.
Right. What I'm going to concentrate on in this session, and it'll just be about 20 minutes, is connecting movement to breathing. Breathing is one thing that you have in your arsenal that can immediately reduce the stress response that you have. That's why, when your mother told you, now just take a deep breath, that there literally is truth to that. And now we can, with research and studies, that it's proven breathing is the one thing you got to stop that response. So it'll involve some movement as you're breathing. It'll be very deliberate. And then I'm also going to add in those stretches that will help relieve tension, what I feel like when you're studying and you're hunched over books all day, in your neck, your shoulders, the back from sitting, sort of relieve that stress and the overuse of those muscles that come from leaning over books and studying books. And then end with a focus exercise to help increase your mental focus. Because as you study hours and hours on end, you begin to lose your focus. So this is something that helps train your brain to help increase focus and awareness. It is not, uh, people can just come in the clothes that they have. If you want to bring them out, you can, but it's not necessary. The room is carpeted, and we'll do some of it standing up. We'll do some of it just seated on the floor. So a mat isn't necessary unless you want to bring one.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again for not only working with us to organize that and offer it for the law students this semester. We're excited about the turnout, and also just for being with us and chatting with us. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Now, as promised earlier in the episode, we're going to listen to some meditative music from Pulse Emitter, who is musician Daryl Groetsch out of Portland, Oregon. So we hope you enjoy this while you're studying for exams, or getting ready for 3L interviews, and just relieving some of that stress. Enjoy.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for listening. You can find us on iTunes and YouTube. You can also check out more information about everything that happens in the episode on our website, ugalawlibrary.wordpress.com. And also, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram under UGA Law Library. Subscribe, give us a like, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.